The carnival is over. 2 days of dancing, of drinking and laughing. Good things to eat and drink, and colors to feast your eyes on. This port town is tired, and it's time for it to rest. Not everyone knows it, but now is a special time. Really, it's as special as the carnival itself, because it only happens once a year. It's as drowsy now as the carnival is lively. The moment is ripe to take a tour and drink in the atmosphere. So let's take a little walk and see what there is to see. Before we begin our tour, it's nice to start with a wind-down exercise. Tonight's wind-down is an exercise we call noting. It helps to soothe the mind, and once you've learnt it, you can even use it if you wake up in the night. We're going to be counting our breaths, and then just gently noting thoughts and feelings as they arise. We're not trying to change them. We're simply labeling thinking as thinking, feeling as feeling. It may sound incredibly simple, but it can help to create distance between ourselves and the thought, ourselves and the feeling, so we don't get so involved in it. That, in turn, creates a more restful state of mind. In other words, the perfect state of mind for gentle, restful sleep. So, to begin with, just take a moment or two to get comfortable. Make sure you're nice and cool. Just starting with some nice, big, deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with the next out breath, allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm, in and out through the nose, and just feeling the weight of the body pressing down into your bed. And in your own time, starting to count the breaths as they pass. 1 with the rise, 2 with the fall, just up to a count of 10. When you get to 10, you can stop and start again at 1. And remember, anytime you get distracted, the moment you realize you're distracted by thought, simply note it, thinking, and return to the breath. Or if a feeling arises, feeling, and return to the breath. That noting is very gentle, not harsh at all. Think of it like a feather, just gently touching the surface of a crystal glass. I'm going to give you a few moments just to keep counting the breath and noting any thoughts and feelings that arise. That's great. At the end of the long street, a white tower appears in the mist. It looks at first like something magical, but gradually you see that it is the lighthouse. We are at the city's edge, against the sea. If you listen carefully, you can hear the water in the dark spaces under the jetties and walkways. The gulls are quiet. All is quiet. The walls of the lighthouse are painted white. Its stairs and window frames red. If you look closely, you can see that it leans ever so slightly to the west, as though it were capable of swaying, like a palm does, in the breeze. It's not an illusion, just a quirk of its architecture. It has been this way for years, so there is no cause for concern. During the carnival, the lighthouse is a way to know your direction. When the streets are made unfamiliar by the crowds of people, you can see it through the rising cooking smoke, and this structure, which was built for ships to navigate by, becomes a way for the revelers to find their way. Now it stands over the street in dignified quiet. The street which glitters here and there still, with the memory of the day's procession of dancers. A wall runs along the length of the street. The wall is not too tall. You can see over it. You can see pleasant trees from a large park behind it. But it's not the park that interests you. It's the wall itself. In the weak light, you study it, walking along its length on this quiet road. The wall is made of boulders. These boulders are painted in beautiful colors: purple, pink, orange, blue, yellow, red. Someone has painted the entire wall, which runs for a block, in these colors. Someone has dressed the boulders up as though they were carnival masqueraders parading in the street. When you press your palms against these boulders, you can feel their lovely smooth texture and their heat. They radiate the warmth of the day that has just passed, that is now ebbing to its conclusion as the earth turns on its axis. A day in which thousands of revelers have passed this wall as the hot sun traversed the sky. In between the wall's boulders, weeds have taken root. Wild flowers have settled in the most improbable of crevices. They are pretty. They are fragrant. Their petals drop to the empty pavement. When you hear the steel pan, you follow it. What else are you meant to do? You don't know for sure where the music is coming from. It fills you with wonder. The wind carries the music. a silver voice bouncing off hills at all directions, carrying its melody. At this hour, all of the steel bands should be silent. Yet somewhere in the distance, one band has not stopped playing. It flies solitary, like a bird returning to nest at the end of day. Without even trying, you find that you are closer. The music is louder. A melody rises and falls like the waves of the ocean, bright, resonant, silver. You approach a wide avenue, lined with large trees. You hear them whisper to each other in the breeze, all the way along the avenue. It's as though they are glad to have your company, to guide you to the steel band. You find the source of the melody. It is coming from a nearby mass camp, a place where costumes are made, sold, and distributed. In the mass camp, a few elaborate costumes have been left behind, standing like museum pieces in the silent yard. The costumes are playful things made of wire and fabric, large fishes, exotic flowers, all once carried by smiling masqueraders. Walls the color of cinnamon, fretwork like lace, windows that are stained glass sweets. Each gingerbread house is a unique confection. Each is part of this silent procession, like kings and queens parading across a stage. This is a town from which traditional carnival characters, like the fancy sailor, a character who dresses like a mariner and wears a large headpiece, set out each year. Now, these masqueraders return, tired, satisfied. They close the wrought iron gates behind them, holding their headpieces in one hand, their standards in the other. These are people who do not throw away costumes, who know the value of fabric, who understand that a hat of plastic flowers from one year can become a bashful bride's bouquet the next. You notice something on the floor. Small bits of paper, like flower petals that have fallen softly to the grass when no one was watching, or confetti. Confetti on the street, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, violet. Bits of costumes, too. There are feathers, there are ribbons, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, violet. The road is now a collage, and you are the center of this canvas. You are a giant, looking down on a riot of color beneath your feet. Some of these look like they've fallen from a particular costume. What's called on this island a Pierrot grenade, a figure in a brightly colored costume made of tiled strips of cloth. The Pierrots must have paraded down this street, a barely contained riot of color. But now all that's left are these simple strips of cloth, lingering like a memory of their presence. You approach an empty square. The square is normally locked, but tonight it has been left open for you. You walk along its gravel paths. You pause at the small fountain at the square's center. The fountain is green. Its water is illuminated. It glows gently. You go and take a look. Beneath the water's surface, you can see the floor of copper coins at the base of the fountain, each one representing a wish, or maybe several wishes, of people who have passed through this square before. Their wishes now constitute this sequined surface. The coins reflect the moon up above you, the sweet, luminous moon. The bell of a cathedral chimes. Beneath a tree, you find a stick. Or is it a wand? You approach a very old building that overlooks the square. Its stones are fine, its Roman arches welcoming. A small sign says it is a library. All of the bricks of this building suggest books, lined in rows on a shelf, waiting for you to read the stories inside them. The parade is over. Nothing left but quiet streets. You have the city to yourself, finally. All to yourself. The streetlights sing, gentle suns, copper candlelight, everything amber, everything gold. To the left are old mansions. To the right is a large, unfenced park, the lungs of this strange city. You smell the park's flowers, its night-blooming jasmines. A sweet breeze embraces you. It has traveled a great distance over the slumbering earth and through the gently rustling leaves to meet you. Ahead, the long avenue is covered with glitter. Glitter that must have fallen from the costumes, from the revelers as they danced to music. There's no music now, only the sparkle of what has been left behind. Pulsing glitter everywhere, on the pavements, in the parched drains, on the concrete walls, glitter on objects that should not be glittered, on fire hydrants, on street signs, on the small huts where vendors sell coconuts during the day, and sometimes at night. But tonight, there's no one here but you. You pass a strange building. It is a riot of turrets, all piled on top of each other, with the artlessness of coral. The windows are leaded and set deeply into the walls. It resembles a Scottish castle, a king's residence, at quarter scale. The stones of its walls are honey-colored and seem to glow in the half-light of the moon. Who was it that thought that this was the right spot for a little castle? You have to admire their audacity. This is a place for costume, so why shouldn't the buildings have their turn? Does it matter that the builder's wife said she preferred a simpler home? Not a bit. He gave it to his son, who named it after a place in Ireland. It is a paradox, both unusual and typical of this place. It is a building in a state of permanent carnival. The weather vane on its smallest turret turns slowly in the breeze from the sea. If you listen carefully, maybe you can hear it creak